a smaller list. Whoops, sorry about that. It's a smaller list. Any comments, Margaret, on the consent agenda at all?
I would just say that we are anticipating a couple changes. Tacey has rescinded her resignation and will continue working as a custodian for us. And we also did have an accepted offer over the weekend for the WHS Associate Principal. Colleen Good will be on next Monday's resolution. She is currently the department team leader for special education at the high school.
Mhm.
She's been here, this is her second year teaching here, but she has experience having served as an interim director of special ed and also a dean of students at another school district. So she will be added to the consent agenda for Monday. But
Okay.
that's it that I know of right now.
Okay, excellent. Anyone have any questions or comments? Nope. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to that. Thank you much, Margaret, for that report there. And then the calendar work group.
Yes.
As a little introduction, I have to say, Margaret, thank you and the team of everybody that has really worked hard on this and has shown as far as the process and things like that is concerned. This, of course, just to give a little background, this, of course, came up, at last year when we voted on calendar, and it's come up actually for several years. And so for this to become an action item and for us to be able to follow through with all of these different pieces has been an exciting process where we've been able to see some movement from that. And so Margaret, took it, formed this team at different levels. There's been different people involved, and we have some work out of this. Margaret, I'll let you take it.
Well, thank you. So I am glad to report on behalf of the entire work group team that participated in all of this work and provided a lot of important feedback in the development of options. So this is just a summary of the work that we did. We were meeting since August 17th. We had a couple of admin meetings where we laid out some goals from the admin side. We also had board input. We took the guidance that all of you had given during the various discussions, and then developed a couple of options. We tested those options with surveys, and I know I'm going really quickly through this, but I'm happy to stop and answer any questions along the way. Distributed and collected the survey data. We came up with a recommendation for 25-26. We did also do some rather extensive research on neighboring and best practice district calendars, like what were the similarities or differences and was there any relevance as it related to the Watertown Unified School District calendars? We had a lot of discussion about that. We did have and we still do have interest in continuing to explore the idea of other innovative options, but for the purposes of this discussion, pretty much limiting it to the outcomes that came about, primarily from the work that was done in preparing some possible options, and then also using the response from the surveys to those options. So we had 3 separate surveys that were sent out to the Watertown High School students. We had a survey sent out to staff and a survey sent out to families, all families in the district. And out of that, we had, as of last Thursday, we had 49 responses from the high school. So the high school student survey, just keep in mind, is a very small sample. We find that in 25-26, we had a clear preference for the modified traditional. And just to refresh your memories, the modified traditional is the one that has the shorter Thanksgiving break. It's not a full week at Thanksgiving. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and has us out, and that's has graduation that first Saturday in June, which I believe is June 5th. So that was the preferred model for 25-26. you'll see that the students did have some interest in exploring other options. Probably out of the idea of exploring other options, the greatest interest in terms of survey responses in doing that was with the student group. You'll see that in just a minute. But they appeared somewhat split amongst the traditional, the modified traditional, and then also the idea of exploring other options for 26-27. The family survey shows a very clear preference for the 25-26 being the modified traditional. And there's a minimal amount of interest in 26-27 for the any other options. And there's again for 26-27 a clear preference to continue with the idea of a modified traditional model. Now, when we did this, we did not really send out like a specific example of 26-27, but we thought since we're surveying, we just want to kind of maybe take the temperature a little bit more clearly for 26-27. We're really focusing on what we were going to see in 25-26. And as you can see from the family survey, that modified traditional, the red in the pie chart is very clearly the preference. And then staff survey also had a very clear preference for the modified traditional for 25-26. They were a little bit more inclined to explore other models. But again, for 26-27, they had a majority interest in continuing with the traditional modified version of the calendar. So that brings us to tonight, which is that we were looking to get from you some recommendation for the 25-26. I can say, speaking on behalf of Jared and the central office team, we would make a recommendation for 25-26 to adopt a modified traditional model. And I know in previous discussions, we had talked about 2-year calendar adoption, and the central office team felt that based on the survey, that it was a safe recommendation, a good recommendation to make a recommendation for both 25-26 and 26-27 being adopted as a modified traditional for the 2 years. And then if the committee agrees with that, I would prepare a resolution. If you wanted me to prepare a resolution for 25-26 only and hold off on 26-27, I can certainly do that too. But I think as you saw from the survey that there's like kind of an interest in maintaining or going back to that 3-day week at Thanksgiving and committing to that earlier graduation date. So I'll open it up to all of you for your discussion, and I'll take whatever recommendation and guidance you have going forward.
All right.
So I appreciate the family feedback on this, you know, along with the staff and student, but I think the family feedback was truly important. I'm good to go forward with the resolution and on both years.
On the modified traditional. Okay, thank
2
you.
years, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Mike, and I think the fact that that would take something off of our work schedule for next year, I think is plus.
Right.
I agree with that.
I would agree. Be prepared that it could get broken into 2 separate resolutions. Typically, when we have a double kind of thing like this, sometimes it gets voted, you know, let's vote on the first one and then on the second one, just in case. But I'm fine, good with leaving it as one to start with, because they're pretty similar. My recommendation would be when we go and look at this then for the next go around for 27-28. If we are gonna do, and I think it would behoove us to do an additional survey at that point in time. But I know comments that I've gotten was, it's hard to say we'd like some other type of calendar without seeing that. And so I think that would have muddied the waters at this point. But going forward to see what the appetite truly is, that, hey, here, we could stay where we are, but this is something a little out of the box. I'm a visual person. I would have voted for the modified traditional just because I don't know what the outside would be. So that's just my suggestion down the road. I think the runway's a little short right now. I think that as this work group has put things together, maybe there's some front loading that can be done for the future.
Excellent. I would agree as well. And I think, you know, as we were going into this, so I think a couple of things as this evolved, I really appreciated, Margaret, how you took this, you organized it and, you know, really came through with the things that we were looking for. You know, we were looking for I appreciate that we had that thoughts as far as like, okay, do families, you know, because our idea was like, okay, well, let's maybe go back to shortened Thanksgiving, get out before double digits in June. And I appreciate that this survey that, you know, and you carried through this process. And so we have the data to be able to look at that. And I can appreciate that what we were thinking was consistent with, you know, what we got as feedback. I would have also appreciated that if it would have been, you know, like, no way, we want to stick with the traditional, you know, because I think that that keeps us in touch with things. And that you took a look at all three groups. Because it's important for employee retention. It's important for families and, you know, what they're looking at. So I would also support, a, you know, 2-year, modified traditional. And I know we had kind of talked, I agree with you as far as Diana, like at some point, you know, because the work has already been done recently with that group to say, okay, these were the other options. And I know we didn't dive into, collaboration time on Wednesdays, whether that stays or goes. You know, I know we didn't, you know, go into that because I know that that had been a question because that's feedback that we get from families. But I think maybe that fits into a longer term and that's not our thing.
If you had not brought that up, I was going to bring that up as
Okay.
kind of an unsaid dangling thing out
Mhm.
there that is also often associated with calendar. So we did solicit comments, you know, text-based comments, and the comment analysis shows that there were some common themes, most of them centering around graduation and early or late and Thanksgiving a week or a shortened week. But in the interest of being totally transparent, in the family responses, 11 out of the 271 respondents did mention an interest in either getting rid of early release or repurposing or repurposing that time or rescheduling Wednesday early release in a way that that made for more like consistent day by day scheduling. So they had a full day. There was a preference from a couple people to have that Wednesday as a full day. Now, we talked with the calendar work group about that because that had come up during the course of some of our discussions. And when I talked with Jared and the team here, there was agreement that if there is interest in exploring changes to early release, that we should make that as a recommendation to either the whole board or just, I don't know how you all are operating committee to committee, but that would require a project or a research study on its own, similar to what we did for Ready, Set, Go, where we said to the ed services people, research this from the instructional side, from the professional practice side, and then come back and tell us how you want to fill those days or not fill those days or schedule or not schedule. And so in talking with the central office team and with Jared, they had also said that, which is that if there's interest in exploring that or potential ways of changing that early release, that there should be an independent project that's separate from the calendar work group and done in advance so that there's enough time to make a decision that would then feed into the calendar work group, or because the calendar is mostly like counting days, looking at, you know, making sure with their contract specifications, student contact specifications and, you know, taking all of that, but actually like how the days and time is spent is something that has been at least recently for the last year or two under ed services. So I don't know, David, I know you're not on the HR committee, but I don't know how that would like flow through, but that seemed to be the next logical place for that question or that interest in that particular topic land. Jenny Borst is not happy with me, so.
Can I add a comment to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's appropriate that we talk about it here at HR, then maybe kind of figure what. Mhm,
I know there's been commentary on both sides of that coin.
mhm.
My cautionary tale here is we are in the process of a number of things. The strategic plan, the referendum, another piece, but also many different levels of curriculum adoption right now. So in my thought, if there's ever a time that teachers need that time, this would be it. So if this is something that we're going to think about pursuing, if we could table it for 6 months, push it down the road a little bit to have that discussion at a later point in time, just knowing all the things that's out there right now, considering the bandwidth of everybody involved. Just my thought.
I think that's good.
The 2 years will also give us a chance to explore that 4-day work.
Joined the meeting.
So maybe that would,
Mhm.
give us time to look at all those things.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Yeah, because it's something, I mean, just from the calendar perspective, if this is already set, we wouldn't be looking to make changes to the calendar till 27-28. So that gives time, that I would think would give time to
Well,
figure out.
I guess I wanted to ask and then, well, mostly ask. So first of all, everything I see on the Skittle chart, the colors, looks great.
Thanks.
Okay, so questions about setting up for 2-year run. Is there a 2-year window? First of all, is there a second one so that we can see them side by side? Right now, if per Diana's comment, if we wanted to approve a 2-year run, then
So-
why is there a document showing what that would look like?
So.
Because I don't see
David,
it.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, can I interrupt? And maybe this leads to that. I know, kind of maybe as the chairperson for Ed Services, we've kind of been keeping the discussion to the committee members. And then if there's, discussion other than that, then we ask to bring it to the full board meeting,
Okay,
if that's okay. I didn't know if that's where you were going or if you were going to
well, I
the,
was gonna answer the Ed Services, but.
okay.
But my comment in that, and when it can be brought up, is what I don't see in this, and once again, maybe I'm towing over a little bit, where are the major tenets? The tenets of this is we have to have so many days, we have to start after Labor Day, we have to finish in the single digits of June, and we shouldn't have any more than 2 days of an orphan in any 1 week of programming. But I don't see those rules, and so the question I'm gonna ask you at the full committee is, what is a modified schedule? You have all these terms out there, but it doesn't mean anything to me because they're just words that are
Okay.
punching out.
and
As far as Ed Services go,
Mhm.
if those major tenants weren't affected, then if early dismissal or ready, set, go are in or out, the calendar would flex to accommodate them because they weren't part of the rules of the tenants, i.e. if the state suddenly came in and decreased the number of days or added number of days, the major tenants would be accomplished if we had those written down. These are our tenets of setting a schedule. If there is programming that changes, whether because state mandates additional PD or we vote in Ed Services to eliminate early dismissal, your tenets of design would flex to accommodate that because those are agreed upon for how to flex based off of what Ed Services may design, ready, set, go, early dismissal, et cetera. What I don't see are those tenants listed here. They had to be incorporated at some point.
Yeah, and that's kind of what, that's what we've been working on. That's what, the work of that will be. So
And then I
Think-
guess, I'm sorry, the last time that it was brought up at Ed Services was 3 years ago. And there was a very good
Okay.
presentation, which was a repeat of a presentation that Cassandra had given once before. But in my first year on the board, one of the board members asked for the early dismissal to be reviewed. And Cassandra and Dave Vitale brought it up, and that's the last time Ed Services looked at it, and that was 3 years ago. So if I can talk to Jenny about it, because she wants you to be her favorite person and figure out if there's a reason to.
Okay.
If there's a reason to look at it again, I just haven't seen a lot of energy on it from anybody aside from that comment right there.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm gonna say it's been codified for all practical
And I
purposes.
have,
Okay,
I
Thank
have
you.
no comment on Ready Set Go.
right,
But, so I just want to circle back to what the committee had recommended last
Mm.
month when we came and said, here's some possible ideas and options.
Mhm.
And the committee had said, let's survey for 25, 26 and find out what's what in terms of 25, 26 first. Because that might then help inform us on what the next step would be for 26, 27. So we had talked that the committee was ready to say, we might just go with 1 year or we might go with 2 years.
Mhm.
Because the survey might
Depending.
guide us into, on that second year. And when we at the admin team, the central office team looked at it, we said, it looks like the favored way of going is a modified traditional version,
Mhm.
which then I bring back to you to say, do you want me to do a 26, 27 modified traditional version, which keeps in mind the guidance that had been developed on
Mhm.
for both years? Or do you want to hold off on 26, 27 and then make that as a separate resolution? Or do you feel, I mean, we need something for 25, 26.
Mhm.
But the question is then, do you feel comfortable including 26, 27 into the resolution for Monday? Or do you want to hold off on that for more discussion?
I mean-
Setting aside anything else
Right,
having to
right.
do with the early release or anything.
I
like
mean,
that.
I'm hearing that we're comfortable going forward with
okay.
modified traditional for both. And if we maybe have those, because then you'll have that schedule mapped out in
I
there,
will
right? With
map
the
out
colors
both of
and
them
the, okay,
very clearly
perfect.
and big enough that everybody can see them.
Excellent, excellent. And then as far as including the information, then as far as the calendar, so then for next Monday, we'd have that resolution with those 2 calendars in there.
Right.
And then if people want more information, then we can refer them back to the charts and the
HR
survey from
okay.
this meeting.
Well, the draft, so that's how I understand it, the draft
Okay.
HR or the draft board agenda that I saw had it as a resolution, not as like part of the strategic discussion. or
Okay.
Anything.
Okay,
But I mean, that's
We-
just what I'm just looking at. I don't usually.
I think that's what, I mean, does that make sense? Does that give us enough information? Okay, okay.
Okay,
So then beyond that, so we've got that part.
right.
So then beyond that, is that where different options?
Beyond that, I guess the question is, do you want the work group to continue to do more in terms of exploring innovative options or keeping that research going or like formalizing some of these other, like the balance calendar, the 4-day-a-week calendar? Do you want them to continue some work? You know, maybe not right immediately, but do you want them to continue working on developing those in a more concrete way, for example, for 27, 28, or do you want to take a pause on that work for a while and then decide?
I think it would be good to do it while the iron's hot. They've got all the information behind it. If you wait a year or 2 years, you've got turnover.
Right.
You know, not that it's a bad thing, but then you're starting over again. So at least they've got the work under their belt to start with. You know, okay, just kind of put a rough draft together, then it can sit for 6 months, a year, whatever. I do like the suggestion of what are those or those pieces that we said were non-negotiables? Those tenants, as David mentioned, what are those? So that way they're in a document, because when this comes up in 3 years, there may be different people sitting around this table that, you know, so here's what we said at that point in time. Is this still what we hold true to, or has enough change in society where we might need to revamp that? But at least having those pieces and then earmarking, where is this gonna come back again to this committee? We can't wait a year and a half, you know, because 2 years, so that survey would go out in about a year that, all right, we're 1 year into it. Now, would you like us for the next 2 years to explore something different? But at that point, they need to see what different looks like.
Okay.
So they can think about that impact, and they need to have more than a week to respond to the survey
Right.
because they don't know what their schedule might be. If you're looking at that non-traditional type thing, they need some time to process
Yeah,
it.
there's some, those are some big changes to the
Yeah.
status quo for sure.
Mhm.
Okay,
And I think too, I mean, I appreciate that too, because it's like, okay, the work has already been done, you know, as far as that goes. And really, as far as like the details of what goes into it, that's what the calendar group specifically talked about. And so there's different requirements on days and hours depending upon elementary, middle school, or high school. And so the principals know that, I think it's the
Right.
principals know those specifics. And so they figure those out and bring that forward. So then we know the recommendation fits all three levels.
right. And there's also semesters and.
Yeah, and all the different nuances there. So they figure that stuff out and just bring it, so we can have confidence knowing that they have those details and know that those requirements are met.
But I can develop a resource list of the premises that we use, the assumptions or the understandings that we use. I can't say, other than the DPI hours and minutes, I mean, which we tend to exceed. I mean, depending on the level, a lot or more than the minimum expectations. Beyond that, a lot of the understandings and practice have been things that have grown here in the district over time. They're not like codified in a policy or administrative guideline or things like that, but I can certainly put that into a documented form. So that like there's this shared understanding of what the rationale was to use to develop, or what the basic understandings were when the calendars were developed.
Sounds good. Anything else regarding that? We're good? We're good? Okay, excellent. Thank you, Margaret. Okay, I feel like that was a monumental accomplishment, everybody. I think that was so good.
I'll feel better after next month.
So good, so good. All right, and then going to letter C, the exit survey process. I know this is something that we had brought up just as far as, you know, when we're looking at consent agenda and we know that we have some of those hard to fill positions and retention and, you know, are there themes and what is the process? And so that's kind of where we were brought to as far as this, and the speed at which the process is, you know, carried out as far as like, you know, are people sharing the information so that it's relevant in timing and things like that? And so, Margaret, you put together some information for us?
Yep, so this is a process that for the most part we are using, with the exception of reporting out to the HR committee, but just know that when somebody first submits a resignation, that the direct supervisor or the building administrator does have an individual conversation with the person to see if there are things that, provided that we want to retain that person, are there things that we could do differently that might convince that person to stay? And that usually is a one-to-one at the building level. And then if there are any possibilities to negotiate some changes, most often that would be in the form of scheduling changes or perhaps assignment changes. We work to see if that will be of mutual benefit to the employee and to the students and to the staff and building. So So we work through that. If that is possible, we will do that. And we have adjusted people's schedules a lot. Particularly at the support staff level where we have a little bit more flexibility to do that and not a lot of other options in our toolkit to offer from a retention standpoint. Scheduling is one area for support staff that we do look to make, reasonable adjustments if that means keeping a person on board. So we will do that. And then we will start sending out within 2 weeks of the ending employment date, the school perceptions exit survey. We do usually accumulate a number of people before we load those into school perceptions. We can do that more frequently than we have been in the past. We usually have been doing it much more based on like end of semester, end of the calendar year, or end of the school year. And send those out, and then we would focus on the key areas that were highlighted in the sample survey that was included in as an attachment on this topic. I then do review the exit survey data that's sent through school perceptions, and I can certainly generate reports off of that. And we do more frequent monitoring if there's periods of high turnover, if there's one school that seems to be having a high level of resignations in a short period of time, we do hone in on those and try to do like individual follow-up to make sure we're capturing that, but we'll put it into a more formal basis. What we are looking for here in our exit survey data is themes that we can report off on. We do tell people that the exit survey information that they're submitting is confidential or anonymous, and that does present some reporting off challenges on a frequent basis for this group particularly. Because generally, if the sample size is 5 or less, that is considered an unsafe level at which to report data, because it's so easily traceable to the individuals. But to the extent that we have a sufficient number of people to protect the anonymity and confidentiality of the data, I will bring back exit survey reports, probably most likely in July and January. We don't have enough turnover on a quarterly basis to be able to say we can do quarterly turnover reporting that for sure on a consistent basis. Now, there might be some quarters where we could, based on how many people are leaving, like the August, like the July to September quarter, we could probably pull a quarterly report after that. There's usually turnover during that period of time as people find other jobs or they decide not to come back or whatever. But then once we get past like September or October, the turnover usually drops and we want it to drop because the school year is underway and we want things to like settle down in terms of our recruitment. So it's unlikely we would be able to have enough turnover to be able to reliably say every quarter we can report, but we can certainly report in July and January, and maybe, that in between quarter, between, like July 1st to July, August, September to September 30th, that quarter, we could probably pull enough data from exit information to report at that time. But it would be like 3 quarters, not a full quarter on a regular basis.
I mean, I think I don't want to
Yeah.
speak for everybody. I mean, if twice a year makes sense, then twice a year
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but if we have a consistent, then we know we can put it in our agenda planning, we can, that kind of thing, but.
Right.
Well,
So we will use that data also as it goes with strategic planning initiatives and like that all-in team pillar, we look at turnover data. So that is basically the process that we'll use. I mean, we have been using an exit survey process, we just have not been reporting out on that on a structured basis, and we certainly can start doing that.
Do we survey retirees as well?
Everybody.
Okay.
Mhm.
Questions?
Are we talking about the other documents too, or just this one? This was kind of like the process. I have questions on the survey and other things, but I'll wait till we get there.
I
On
don't
the
know.
sample survey document.
I
Yeah,
didn't know
might
if
as
you
well
were
go
gonna
for
talk
it.
I didn't
I
know if
don't
you were
know.
gonna talk specifically about that. We've already talked kind of about that at past meetings,
Mm-hmm.
so. I didn't wanna jump the gun on Margaret though.
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can, yeah, go for it.
So looking at the survey itself.
Mhm.
A few general questions, a couple specific questions, starting with number 2. Sorry, it's really not number 2 because each page is different. It's actually slide 4, decision to leave.
Mhm.
When we ask what school district you'll be working with next year, I'm wondering why we're asking that question. How does that information benefit us? It seems like personal information. Does it really matter what district they're going to?
It does
I'm
if
just
there's a
curious.
trend. I mean, it does if everybody is leaving us to go to Oconomowoc and there's
Okay.
like positions.
Okay.
I mean,
No,
that,
I was just curious. I
that
didn't think
would-
of it from that
that
perspective.
might then prompt some additional questions, like what is it that Oconomowoc is doing
Mhm.
to like attract our staff at that rate?
No.
Um,
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then number 3, why did you consider a new job in the first place? How is that question different than number 1?
It really isn't, but there might be something else, there might be another there. I mean, it's a way of asking again, like, sometimes there's a precipitating factor that isn't covered in this.
Well, and that was my rephrasing, that would be something like other reasons why you would be leaving.
Right.
Or why you're choosing to leave, something a little more direct. I mean, if I was you, I'm like, well, I already answered that, no, but if there's other reason, oh, it might be a conflict with whatever, just.
Are these questions directly from school perceptions?
Mhm.
Kind of like the employee satisfaction
Yes.
survey? Okay.
So that was another piece. All right, then if you guys don't have anything else, I'll keep going. I don't
Yeah,
wanna
keep
totally
up.
hog the
No,
floor.
go.
In the reflection section, there's all the different reasons that could have been factors in there. That would be slide 5.
Mhm.
As a teacher that talked with a lot of different people in my career, why they would leave, I didn't see anything there that says to be at home with my family. Yet for some, that is a major reason why it talks, it says closer to home, the last one on there right before number 2 says to be closer to home. But that's different than to be at home with them. So that was just a thought in there.
So we could pull that out. I know there's a work-life balance question there, which is where some frequently that issue
Falls.
of I want to spend more time at home for whatever reason
Oh.
is usually
So it
falls
could be,
under the work
yeah,
life.
no, and that's fine, because I didn't look at it from that perspective. I looked work-life balance of, okay, I'm giving this, it's just taking too much of my time as opposed to being totally at home, but no, if it fits there, great, these are just suggestions, these are not
Mhm.
mandates by any means. In the additional thoughts. I don't know, I didn't put a slide number on it, maybe it's the same one. The things these are just my additional thoughts to it, that's why I'm like, why isn't there additional thoughts section? Maybe there's something in there, share specific examples, how we could. No, this is for you, Margaret, sorry. How could we use the strengths or improvements portion to make our district better? I'm just curious, give me an example or 2. It talks about things that you could improve. What do we do with that?
Mhm.
So I take that information back to the central office team and see if that aligns, if there's an alignment with other information that we're getting from people that are currently working here. Because sometimes there is, I mean, sometimes there's like, yeah, we're hearing it from people leaving, it's a big enough issue to get people out the door. Are we also hearing that internally? Because then we need to maybe look at what is it that we're doing and what types of things might we want to explore if the idea is to lessen the turnover or, well, it would be to lessen the turnover, I guess.
No,
I mean,
because we're trying to focus on data-driven decision-making.
Correct.
And that's exactly what this is doing. So that's what I was
Right.
kind of hoping. I just didn't want to assume.
Right.
I wonder if it would behoove us to place a spot on here where if you want to leave your name optionally,
Mhm.
leave your name. I know as I exited, I would have loved to be able to fill out a survey and leave my name and my phone number, because we didn't have the one-to-one kinds of things.
Mhm.
Sometimes meeting with the building administrator, sometimes you can't talk to the building administrator. And so just having that, whereas if you don't put your name on it, there's no way to get something more concrete. If
So
it's an optional piece.
we do offer in-person exit surveying in place of the online survey. We give people the option, do you
Okay.
want to come in and talk?
Perfect.
Do you, or do you need a paper survey? We give a number of different options so
Excellent.
that people aren't feeling like. And then we also do include a statement as if there's, this is for purposes of evaluating the workplace. But if there's something specific related to your own personal employment experience that you want us to follow up on, please let us know that directly.
And then maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe I need to look at this through a different lens. My last question on the survey is, this seems more teacher focused. How do you feel that it fits for our cleaners, our clerical, our admin, our paras? I tried to think of it through that lens, but I don't know those, many of it could be, but do you notice that it fits each of those subgroups pretty well?
Like if you look at the reasons for leaving,
Mhm.
these are kind of universal
Mhm.
reasons that people might consider leaving. I don't think they're unique to teachers.
I don't think any either, and I'm, because my primary background is teaching, I'm looking at it through that lens, that's why I'm simply asking.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Do you feel that it fits all the subgroups pretty well?
I feel when I look at this list of reasons for people
Mhm.
leaving, that it encompasses everyone.
Look at
from
reflection, look at,
Mhm.
From
I'm thinking of- yeah.
administrators to.
no, and I'm thinking
Yeah.
in both that slide and slide 5,
Mhm.
Yeah,
does it feel, and I'm not critiquing, I'm just wondering, does
no.
it fit?
it really does fit
Mhm.
Each of
the
them?
reasons that
Perfect.
people are leaving.
Be that I had been a sub and I had been a para, I would say that those would have fit, like looking at it
And I'm
from
just looking
that.
at it from the.
Yeah, no, I
global
think it's good, 'cause
perspective.
we have to ask that, cause it's all
I see.
positions. And I think that would have fit for me.
And then I only have one other question, but it's actually based on your next document. So if there's any other questions on the survey.
Which next
I-
document?
The turnover one.
Turnover, so the
Yes.
turnover report, I think you'll remember we talked
You've
about
shown us
that.
this. Mhm.
And had gone through it
Yep.
a couple months ago.
Yep. My question is just, I'm curious, and I don't know if we can have this data or if it's too specific. I'm curious what the breakdown is by level, elementary versus middle school versus high school. When my kids were in elementary school, it seemed like a revolving door for elementary teachers. That's
Mm.
7, 8 years ago. Things have shifted since then. I know that we've heard different things about certain schools compared to others.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious. It's hard, I don't wanna say harder work, but there's a lot more responsibilities at the elementary levels with all the different kids coming in, whatever. So I'm just curious if there's a higher turnover rate, elementary compared to middle compared to high school.
Which I can break out.
So that would be my
Certainly can
only
break that out.
piece in there, just to see, and if we consistently see that our elementary schools are in the 20%, but our secondary, middle and high schools are in the 3%, you know,
Yeah.
then maybe there's something we need to look at there. That would be my only thought.
Yes,
Mhm.
I can certainly do that.
Thank you.
It's a good question.
Thanks. That was my last, save my best for last.
Oh, come on, don't you have 10 more? Come on, Diana.
These are easy
Just
ones.
kidding. Yeah, no, it's good, it's good. You're good, Mike?
Yeah, no questions. at this time.
Okay. I have a couple. I have- Diana covered everybody. I'm sorry, did you have your hand raised, Dan?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, two comments, I guess, that I have, and I'm not sure what, anyway, two comments that I have. So when we're looking as far as like the process is concerned, and someone does an exit survey like informally with their supervisor, is that documented anywhere?
Is it formally documented? No. Is it
Okay.
documented informally? Usually, yes. Like,
Okay.
somebody will send me an email saying, you know, so-and-so is leaving because they need benefits and they took a full-time job here. Or,
Okay.
do you know, I mean.
Yeah, like more in a general sense
Right.
that
Right,
the one, like,
anecdotal.
make sure that they are actually doing that human
Yes,
interaction
yes. We
piece.
actually do generally know
Okay,
often, I mean, more times than not, for sure, why specific people are leaving. I mean,
okay,
Very, like, we collect that information. It's just often much more anecdotally than like in a structured way.
Okay.
So,
So how
Yeah,
is that reported then? In
well,
your,
we have it on a spreadsheet now.
no,
so-
I mean, when it's the anecdotal stuff, does that then go into your data that's collected?
It may not go into I mean, exit surveying is done by the employee. I mean, we collect the information and track it now on a spreadsheet, what that reported reason for leaving is. Sometimes it gets kind of personal, and
right,
so, but we don't align what they say on their exit survey information with what they report. I mean, we just know it's a small enough district within small enough buildings for us to know like the specifics of why one individual employee would be leaving. And we use that information on the front end, like I said, when the building principal is talking, but it's not the type of data that you would collect and report off on.
out of a personal
From a
conversation, is that
personal-
what you're, okay,
Like a one-to-one conversation.
So I guess I'm missing the point. You said that there's the option to take the survey, paper and pencil, or interview process.
Right, but
So with
that,
the interview process, does that data somehow come into the data set that we just looked at?
so if somebody came in personally for an exit survey, we would use the same set of questions.
Okay.
And we would input that on their behalf into the exit survey.
Got it. That's what I originally thought, and then
okay.
sorry, Tina.
No, that's good. And then I don't know if maybe, so one of my questions too was, I appreciate that you included the exit survey sample, because in looking at that, I did want, I did want to know like, oh, okay, so they are able to get specific. Because typically when, we've heard like a general overview, as far as like, I mean, when we're going through consent agenda, obviously that's the most, the information that's out there. And, and I know we don't talk specifics and things like that, but it seems like there's been kind of an overview as far as like people maybe leaving for different jobs, maybe that's what they mark on the survey, but then like I'll get personally contacted and that's not what they're saying, so I didn't know if there's a way, and I know people can say what they want on a survey, that kind of thing, but I didn't know if if the school perception survey or if the exit survey is capturing accurate feedback, or, I mean, I don't know if there's different ways to ask the question, you know, I mean, you kind of went
Right.
through that and stuff, or if other schools encounter that at all, I don't know.
Well,
But I wanted to ask.
I mean, I guess that goes back to the whole issue as with any personnel matter, is that if they're reporting something to you individually as a board member, it's my understanding that that should be reported. The specifics of that for follow-up should be reported to Jared and or me to follow up
Okay.
directly with the employee on. And so, like, that is concerning, if it's like a totally different reason that somebody else is, and then we don't have the opportunity to follow up unless the individual board member reports the specifics to Jared, or again, like to me. I don't know what to do with that.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not going, I don't have the option to act on it.
Right,
And,
right.
and so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it, you know, yeah, okay. Yeah, I know.
But if
How
you
does
hear
that, how does
something
that
and
come
I
together?
get, you know, if I get the information,
Mhm.
I will follow up if I am.
Have that
able-
opportunity
yes,
to do that.
yes.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Those are the only questions I had. All right. We're all good on that. Thank you, Margaret, for that
Sure.
process and everything. And I mean, I think, then that would that then become an action item as far as the exit survey data
Yeah.
report out twice a year?
Mhm.
And then we
would
can-
build that into the future planning.
Yeah.
Our regular calendar.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, open benefits enrollment update.
So this is just my courtesy announcement to just keep you fully informed that we are doing our open benefits enrollment. We've rolled it out. This is our annual open enrollment for various fringe benefits, including health and dental and section 125 plans and things like that. And so as you will recall, we made a change in the plan design this year, which was rolled out. We had some increases in the premium. And we did roll all of that out last week, Monday, and so we're in week 2. It will run through November 22nd, and the feedback that we have gotten is none. So.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure that you knew, in case any of you are contacted or questioned, that, you know, just recall, we made a slight plan design change, and but that we haven't received any comments one way or the other. It's been rather routine and just people doing their annual enrollments for the benefits that they are interested in to meet them, their needs or the needs of their families, and going very smoothly. So that's all I have to say about USI and our benefits enrollment.
Excellent, excellent. Anybody have any questions about that? Nope, we're good. Okay. All right, excellent. Then as far as future meeting planning, we have that pulled up. And so as far as December, of course, we'll have consent agenda, and then that will then include admin renewals and extensions. I thought that usually came out in February.
Jared asked me to put it on in December.
Oh, okay, because I was gonna say it's also listed in February. Okay, so we're bumping that up.
Jared asked me to add that, yeah,
Okay,
for December.
okay, okay. So that's important for us to note there. We'll have an employee wellness committee update, a support staff salary update, because Margaret's still going through that process and everything. And then substitute staffing report, because that's kind of usually when we start to see some movement in there and see what that's gonna look like. And then, of course, oh yeah, we already put consent agenda in there. Anything else that we would need to add to the agenda to
yes.
December?
Not for December.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
For January,
Yep,
we met with the Cottingham Butler consultants on the teacher compensation
oh,
program and the model and the study that's underway.
Okay.
And they had after they met with us, and at Jared's recommendation, we will have them on in January for, a kind of a mid-review update, as well as I'm sure that they will be seeking guidance from you in terms of how you want to go forward with respect to options or model development, or what things you might really want, any potential options or adjustments to the current model. So they met with us for a couple hours today, and the outcome of that was that we thought it might be a good idea to get this committee involved in the discussion in January. They still have a little bit more work that they need to do in terms of refining the information that they will bring back to us, but that is, it will likely be a significant amount of time to talk through.
Okay, so we can all kind of plan on a little more time than in January. Okay, thank you for that, Margaret. Okay, so then if we're looking at action items, what I think I hear that we're taking a look at, well, we've got the exit survey process, the report out
Right.
in July and January?
Mhm.
Okay, July and January. Does that sound, did I capture that right? Okay. And then the calendar work group, item B, we will have one resolution with both of the calendar options. And then is it like in a year then we do kind of a survey, or what do you think the timeline should be as far as like putting forth those alternate calendar ideas? Do you have any thought, anybody have any thoughts on that? I don't know that we gave that a specific thing.
So we were saying to develop the options for 27, 28 about now, or in over the next few months.
Okay,
And then holding that until maybe a late spring, summer discussion. And then deciding if we want to take that out to survey for 27, 28 and beyond. Is that?
does that sound,
I think so, yeah.
I'm okay with that.
okay, that sounds good. Okay, so that'll be an action item there.
And then the resolution. for the-
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then, I'm sorry. Do we have clarity on the Wednesday early release? And what we're doing with it?
I defer to the board committee, what I.
Is
I
it,
mean, I might think consultation with board leadership in terms of how that.
kind of the
Okay.
process, how that
Right, I
evolves
really
and
don't
where
know
does that,
how-
okay,
I
so
mean,
we're
it-
kind of not, we're not sure as far as like where
Yeah.
that goes, if that
Services
needs
wasn't planning on taking that up.
needs to be,
We only had 11 respondents.
okay,
Yeah, I'm just telling you, unless I was here, I wouldn't know about it, and I wouldn't know it's a directive, but I agree with Margaret. Either board leadership or central office if it needs to be brought up again, but right now it's not on Jenny's radar.
right, that's completely fair.
Well, and it's not on
Um,
anybody's radar for the next year, at least.
Well,
Correct.
just to be clear, the central
right.
office team knows the outcome of the survey, and they are well aware that I was gonna say.
Like Dan said, 11 out of
Right.
200 is not a majority make.
No.
But like Dan
But
said too, if we go to a in that non-traditional schedule, that conversation will arise naturally, so I'm not sure we need to have an additional conversation prior to that, cause that'll be a natural conversation.
Is it, oh, go ahead.
I think the concern from the work group perspective, from the teacher perspective, was that if a change was going to be made, is there a genuine understanding of how that time is used? And I mean, it was clear from the teachers that were on that work group that that is valued time. And their questions were, do people understand what we're doing? Do they understand how we use that time? Do they understand? We would need to know, like, what would we do instead if
Mhm.
we didn't do that? So, I mean, that was one part of the feedback that we got, and then the other part was the 11 responses on the family survey. That was just like, stop doing that from a scheduling standpoint. And so, but the actual design of how that time is used by teachers, I mean, because it's early release for students, but it's not the end of the workday for
Right.
teachers. And I don't know that that is always to the extent to which that is fully explained and known. And then the teachers were like, how are we going to get that work that we get done during that time done?
And I think from the parental standpoint, once a week having that, what do I do for childcare? How do I,
Mhm.
that is a legit concern.
Mhm.
As is the teacher concerned. So trying to find that balance. I don't know, is it? When you have an early release day, that still counts as a full day, correct? And so that's where even trading the minutes off for one professional day a month doesn't necessarily work because that's a day off of school, it
Mhm.
comes into minutes, it comes into days. So it's just trying to creatively think outside the box. I don't know if there's a way.
It would have to be a whole evaluation thing that,
Right.
like, how does it fit into the overall plan and things like that. So, I'm not sure what to do with that because we've had questions on that, like that has had questions. And so, okay, then maybe we can,
So if Margaret though
seek some
said that
clarification.
if people don't realize, the question came up, do they know what we're doing?
Right,
The answer is no. Many parents don't know what's happening.
Mhm.
So how can we make that more transparent? Hate to say do another, my question is maybe that's something to think about. How can we make that more transparent? So that it's out there, maybe it's a matter of, I don't wanna do another survey. But pictures of this is what Douglas did during the early release day, here's pictures of the
Communication.
collaboration, it's that communication piece, right? And that transparency piece in a staff newsletter, for example. Just something, I'm just trying to think of ways to show that there is value to it. Because I know there's been conversation among board members in the last year of, do teachers still really need that time?
Mhm.
And it wasn't a question of they don't need it, it's just asking the question again, transparency, what do we use that time for? How are we using it? So I think that's
Is it
just a
still
good thing,
valuable?
to bring up regardless.
Okay, so we'll kind of marinate and see where that's gonna go, but at least we'll have that in the minutes.
Okay.
As far as, okay, that was discussed and we'll have to figure out what path that's gonna take. All right, do you have clarity on our action items? Do we have
I
any
do.
questions? Okay,
No.
all right. All right, anybody have anything else? Okay, great. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your input, your questions. Margaret, thank you for your work and the team and everything. We stand adjourned 6:34.
Thank you.
Margaret, on